So, the long-awaited prequel movie to the classic gangster drama The Sopranos, The Many Saints of Newark, which fans of the show have been waiting for years, is now finally out. The movie was brought to us by David Chase, the creator of the show, and Alan Taylor, the director of the film, who was also one of the show's original directors. The Sopranos, of course, ended in 2007, after first airing on HBO in 1999, and since Season 6's controversial and much talked about finale, fans have speculated that we could have more Sopranos content on the way. A movie set after the show, perhaps, another season maybe, a prequel series based on the life of Tony's father, Johnny Boy. In fact, one idea I heard David Chase discuss on the podcast Talking Sopranos was bringing back the cast for The Sopranos for a new cop show, in which the likes of Steve Schreiber and Michael Imperioli would be in squad cars, for example. Politics and drama at the precinct station, Tony Sirico playing an older veteran cop, and Daniel Grimaldi, the guy who played Patsy in The Sopranos, being the only actor who would reprise his actual role from the show. This idea was half a joke, according to Chase, but anyway, the idea of Sopranos beyond the initial run of the show has always been talked about, even if the options were severely limited after the death of the show's main actor, James Gandolfini. And now here we are, 14 years later, and that long-awaited elusive dive back into the world of backstabbing mobsters, granny strangling gangsters, and old guys getting their hands stuck in the sink, and construction tycoons greasing the union, catching, not pitching, is The Many Saints of Newark. This film focusing on the mentor of Tony Soprano in his youth, Dickie Moltisanti, the father of Christopher. And now the film is out. And it was crap. Well, that's according to the consensus online, from what I can see anyway. At the time of the making of this video, the film has a 6.4 out of 10 rating with 27k votes on IMDb. It's in the yellow zone on Metacritic with 60 out of 100, and it has a 73% score on Rotten Tomatoes with a 59% audience score. Okay, so crap might be an overstatement, mediocre might be more appropriate, but hardcore Sopranos fans in particular, who of course the film is made for, are particularly vocal online in their distaste for the film. For me personally, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great, and I didn't think it was bad. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the film, you can check out my review and also another video I did called Was the Many Saints of Newark a Disappointment? And while you're at it, feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button for more content. But overall, I liked what I saw in the movie but felt there were problems. Much of the problems linked to the lack of time the film had to explore everything it wanted to do. I do think time will be kind to the movie, as I've said before, and I think a sequel to the movie can actually improve this film and address issues that fans had with it. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, a sequel to The Many Saints of Newark and what it could potentially explore. I think we can all agree, if the movie has issues, the main issue is that it only had 2 hours to do what it wanted to do. And I think again we can agree that the solution to that issue was not to make a movie, but a limited TV series, something from 6 to 13 episodes, where all these storylines could be given a chance to breathe. I mean, let's briefly run down a few of the plots in the film. Dickie and Hollywood Dick's volatile relationship, Dickie wanting his stepmother, Dickie mentoring Tony, Tony's relationship with his mother, his father, Uncle Junior, Junior's resentment of Dickie, Harold trying to break away from Dickie and going solo, the Newark race riots and how they impacted the characters, exploring the incarcerated Sally Moltisanti, exploring the younger versions of the guys who would end up in Tony's crew, and a lot more. Because we followed up a 80-plus episode series with a 2-hour movie, many things that we thought might be in The Many Saints of Newark were not in it, and things that were in the film were condensed and only hinted at, perhaps for a lack of time, like Junior's bitterness towards Dickie, which I go into in detail in my video Who Shot Dickie Moltisanti. I'm fine with this movie choosing to focus on Dickie and all the things it did, but I just wanted to spend more time in the world so things could be more fleshed out. Even small little things like, for example, Dickie making his father's woman his mistress would raise eyebrows, you would think, but nobody brings it up. But there is that one scene where Joey Diaz says, "I would eat her shit," and Dickie beats him. He's shaking and everything, declaring, "You don't talk about her, and I love her." A little bit of an overreaction, I thought. Not the beating, but saying, "I love her." Like, why do you feel the need to say that? But the way I interpreted this scene was that Dickie had been getting comments about his relationship with Josephina, and this was basically the straw that broke the camel's back, and Dickie lashed out. That's pure speculation on my part. I've practically invented scenes in my head. But the point I'm making is that even the most minute of subplots in the film could have been expanded on if it was a series, and there's still time to do that with another movie. And I say movie and not series because Chase, who recently signed a new deal with HBO, has categorically ruled out a new prequel series despite, in my opinion, the ending of the film being a perfect gateway into a young Tony Soprano's origin series. But he is open to the idea of returning to The Many Saints with a sequel movie. In fact, he wants to do it, bringing along Terence Winter for the ride, one of the best writers of the original series and also the creator of Boardwalk Empire. But funnily enough, literally as I'm making this video, news has come about that Warner Media is in talks with David Chase about a HBO Max prequel series of The Sopranos, which is literally the perfect thing that could follow this movie. But I'll talk about that more in another video. So if they do another movie, what should they explore? Well, for one, they need to wrap up things from the first film, namely the Harold storyline. This guy has killed guys in the mob, and the last we see of him is him having successfully gone solo. But there was a scene where he was spotted by a shady figure when he was with a kid, the implication being that he's being watched and a hit is being prepared. Dickie Moltisanti even makes plans to kill Harold the same night that he himself is killed. He was a big part of the first movie, bigger than a lot of Sopranos fans wanted him to be, I might add, so it would be weird for him not to be in a sequel. Perhaps they will tie things together with him being blamed for Dickie's death and a young Tony Soprano going after him, although Tony tells Christopher that story about Jilly Ruffalo in The Sopranos, so they'll have to reconcile that somehow. Tony's first hit is said to be someone called Willie Overall, and there is a character in Many Saints killed by Harold called Leon Overall. Maybe there's a connection. A relative who works with Harold who Tony eventually kills? Who knows? Of course, we have to ask who the main focus of a sequel will be, and I think it isn't crazy to suggest that it will be a young Tony Soprano. After all, Michael Gandolfini did well with the role in the first film, and given his age in real life, and where the character is by the end of the film, it seems like a perfect time to make a young Tony Soprano origin movie. In other words, the film that almost everyone thought The Many Saints of Newark was going to be. Personally, I don't think the complaints that The Many Saints of Newark didn't focus enough on Tony are valid, because the movie never claimed it was going to be a Tony origin story. It's literally called Many Saints, i.e. Moltisanti. And I know that David Chase also was irritated with the marketing of the movie, making it out to have so much focus on Tony Soprano. But that's what trailers and stuff are for, doing what they can to put bums in seats, even going as far as to lie to you. It's high time people stop being reliant on trailers and building their expectations of movies around them. But with Tony as the focus, you have the perfect focus for all of the interesting characters in the Sopranos prequel universe to be in the movie. More of Livia, played brilliantly by Vera Farmiga in the first film. More of Johnny, who was hardly in the first movie, and it would be interesting to see the dynamic between him and Tony with both of them in the mob. We'd also see more of Tony's eventual crew like Paulie and Pussy, maybe his cousin Tony B, and the time Tony had a panic attack after which that animal Blundetto was sent to prison. And of course, the big thing, the event that everyone goes on about, which cements Tony as a mobster and fast-tracks him to being made, the robbery of Feech La Mana's card game. Seeing the build-up and the aftermath of that would make for interesting cinema. Of course, they'd have to reconcile how Silvio is so much older than Tony in Many Saints, and yet The Sopranos tells us he went along with Tony and Jackie for the robbery. So maybe we'll need a scene of a 20-something-year-old Tony trying to convince the older Silvio why the robbery would be a good idea. Or maybe Silvio is a necessary part of it as he's some kind of inside man. And going back to Johnny Boy, it would be interesting to see his death and how it impacts Tony, both as a son and as a mobster. With Dickie dying in the first film, would Johnny Boy swallow his crew, i.e. Paulie and Silvio, and thus would Tony inherit them, as one of Johnny's final wishes? Would the older members of the DiMeo family resent the young Tony Soprano, looking down on him and thinking him unworthy, which of course is one of the main themes of The Sopranos? In fact, more of a focus on Johnny Boy is actually something Michael Gandolfini, who played the young Tony Soprano, wants to see explored. As he said in an interview, "Well, I think there's a clear transition after the movie and before the series. There's so much. I'm really interested in Johnny, I feel like his absence is felt so much in this movie, which I think is really effective and good because I think it's what Tony feels. But I'm just interested in what Johnny's take is on his son walking into the mob. Does he like it? Does he not? I've always found that so interesting. I always thought Livia is such a big part of Tony, but I almost think that Tony might have more trauma with Johnny because he never talks about Johnny in therapy. He does a little bit, but he doesn't go deep with him, so I've always been interested in that. Of course, one of the most interesting characters in a sequel would be Junior. He and Livia would surely get increased roles, with Livia becoming a much harder person to live with after her mental problems compound. Vera Farmiga has expressed interest in a sequel, saying, "But Johnny and Livia are an unfinished symphony. I want more of Johnny Bernthal. He is like fresh-cut grass to me, a shot of chlorophyll. He and I need more to do next time around. I hope there's a Many Saints of Newark too. Honestly, it would be my heart's delight if they would just do a prequel series. That would be my absolute dream. I'm not ready to let this character go, and with an actor like Johnny, who is such pure joy to be in a scene with, I feel it's just the beginning." Seeing what they would do with Junior would be very interesting. The way I see it, Junior and Tony would grow close. Tony, of course, never learning the truth about who killed Dickie. Junior would school Tony, taking the place of Dickie as the young man's mentor, but instead of pushing him away into the life of a civilian, pulling him into the world of the mob. I envisage Junior's actions at the end of Many Saints being a turning point for Junior, ostensibly. He raises his profile, gets a crew, gets a rep, becomes an established gangster, even though deep down, we all know he's an insecure cocksucker, who spends a lot of time south of the border. You know, when Dickie died in the first film, I was kind of upset. It worked for the movie, but it of course dawned on me that what little we saw of his and Tony's relationship, that was it. And Alessandro Nivola killed it as Dickie Moltisanti, this legendary character who we knew hardly anything about. I was really looking forward to seeing more of him in potential sequels, up until of course he got shot in the head. And I wonder, would it be possible to incorporate him into a sequel? Not like they did with Ray Liotta, like introducing a twin, Ricky Moltisanti, but maybe a flashback or two, if it's not too much to ask. Maybe Tony comes across some memorabilia which sparks a quick flashback to a scene with Dickie and him, giving us further dimensions to their relationship. And of course, doing this might spark criticism that the movie is trying to correct the mistakes of the first film, that they knew they shot themselves in the foot by killing Dickie off too early like they did Grimaldi in The Sopranos, and now have found an excuse to bring Nivola back. But whatever, the filmmakers literally pulled the identical twin card in the first film. That's way more extreme than simply a flashback. I would like to see how Dickie's death affected Tony, how he ends up with no appropriate mentor with good intentions, just two abusive parents and Mr. Magoo. He'll be lost, directionless, angry, easy to manipulate into a life of crime. Perhaps the news that Dickie was found with drugs will harm Dickie's reputation, in addition to him working with black people. Maybe he'll be seen as a loser drug addict, something that Tony will have to reconcile with. Of course, a sequel to The Many Saints of Newark cannot simply be a rundown of famous events that were mentioned in the show. The card game, the jacket, all of that stuff. After all, remember when is the lowest form of conversation. These things should be done sparingly. I think the first film has taught Sopranos fans to be careful what they wish for in terms of callbacks. But even aside from all of that, the movie needs its own story, its own antagonist, if there needs to be one, and its own original story. It will be great seeing more of our favourite characters, but that should be the icing on the cake. The cake itself should be something new and creative the writing team come up with, without having to resort to making a film that is simply Easter egg after Easter egg. But in general, of course, I think in a sequel to The Many Saints of Newark, now that we've explored Dickie Moltisanti and all of the younger versions of the classic characters have been established, we should follow up with what is essentially a Tony Soprano's origin story, a fully fledged tale of a 20-something-year-old Tony Soprano being indoctrinated into the mob, working his way up and fast-tracking himself into the position of a made man. So, would you like to see a sequel to The Many Saints of Newark? What do you think it should explore? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.